talk about fear, anger, grief, you talk about love and happiness and peace. Is that part of the process too?
Well, they're already there. Okay, so it's not about making those things happen. It's about realizing them, developing the capacity to realize what they are. Right. So, for example, unless we resolve the fear, anger, and grief, there is no peace. Peace isn't possible. An awareness of peace isn't possible, although all that there is peace. There is nothing but peace, right? The fear, anger, and grief, you see, peace and love and all these things that we talk about, how do you know when you're experiencing love?
You feel it.
How do you know when you're experiencing peace? Right. It's all about the feeling capacity. Now, when I have an immense amount of fear, anger, and grief in my system, my natural tendency is to suppress that from my awareness. And simultaneously, as I suppress it, I'm suppressing my capacity to feel. And therefore, I don't have the capacity to contain the awareness of what fear, anger, and grief is. I mean, of what peace is.
How do I handle that anger, fear?
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay, we're going to get to that. The thing about the fear, anger, and grief, you see, this is the thing. Someone came to me just now and asked me a question related to Eckhart Tolle's work. And I have to say that I don't know much about Eckhart Tolle. I know a few things with the same publishing company, and I listened to one CD of his a while back, probably about 3 or 4 years ago. But I generally don't look at other people's work or listen to other people because I get confused. Because what happens is it invalidates my experience. Right? And so unless it confirms my experience directly, I won't have anything to do with it. My experience is my teacher. Right? So it's hard for me to... may not have the same vocabulary as them. They may have a different vocabulary. But for me, fear, anger, and grief, I have proven and I have shown to myself in my own experience. I only share insight out of my own experience. That's why I don't have a piece of paper and notes. I don't need notes because I don't have to remember what to say. I don't have to remember what to say if it's someone else that said it and I have to remember it. Right? But if it's my own experience, I can just speak from my own experience. And from my own experience, I can tell you that the majority of people that struggle with this work or that are struggling is because of the denial of the fear, anger, and grief, or even wanting to go. We want to find any way around this. And we have body, mind, and spirit organizations. They're all body, mind, and spirit. No one wants to go near that stuff. Nobody. Even though we're told, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. We don't really realize what that is. Unless we become a child again, the child is the part of us developed in the first 7 years. Unless we enter that resonance, we cannot awaken to what the kingdom is. And the reason for that is very simple. While I have fear, anger, and grief, I'm suppressing it out of my awareness. I'm entering reactive behavior, and the reactive behavior is to take me away from any situation that would reflect my fear, anger, and grief back to me, and therefore there's no forward movement. I'm always running away and going around in circles. And I'm simultaneously suppressing my capacity to feel. The thing about it is this: peace, love, all what I am, what you are really, what God is really, where we are really, is interacted with us primarily through the heart, through feeling it. The mental body cannot comprehend this. It has no point of reference for this. The physical world can reflect aspects of it, but it cannot contain a full awareness of this. The only aspect of our being that can feel, the only part of us that can feel that we have no, when I say to you, you cannot remember not being alive. You can't feel that memory. You can feel You can't feel a beginning. The feeling capacity can feel no beginning, and it can feel no end. The mental body can't handle that. It has to have a point. No, I was born 46 years ago, mentally. I can count the years, right? The feeling capacity is the only one that it can engage with this. The thing about peace is this. Peace is a feeling. In this world, when we shut down our emotional body, we behave in this way. We believe we have to make peace. We actually believe we have to make it, right? We have organizations that go around making peace. It's the most delusional behavior that is possible, right? Anyone who thinks that they can make peace is in a state of delusion. Peace already exists. You can't make something that is already created, right? And so the way we make peace is this, because remember, these are bosom buddies. The physically, if we watch our leaders, we don't like our leaders because they behave like us. We would rather have leaders that behave like saints rather than the way we behave, right? And so the way our leaders behave is this. If a leader wants to make peace, they go, you all shut up and sit still. And if you don't shut up and sit still, I will shut you up and sit you still so we can be at peace.
Okay.
Right? Because the belief is that peace is a physical circumstance. And that if I can rearrange the physical circumstances according to what I think is appropriate, according to my emotional imprint, according to hiding from myself what I most fear about myself or don't like about myself, then I'll be at peace. And so I physically try and change the world. And actually, we behave like our leaders every day. Whenever we tell anybody else to behave differently so I can feel better about, I love you, but if you would just change the way you are, I can feel better about it, right? So that's behaving like a dictator. Another way that we make peace because we can't feel it is mentally. And we say, you bring your peace manifestos. And I will bring my peace manifesto. And we'll get together and have a peace conference. And we will discuss peace. And you will say what you want and need. And I will say what I want and need. And then once we come to a compromise, we'll sign this in front of the media and hallelujah, right? There shall be peace. Well, actually, hallelujah means hell is a toilet, yes. Hallelujah, right? Peace has to be felt to be realized. Iraq is completely blanketed with peace. There is nothing but peace there. And it's very easy to see that. You just take every human being away and you'll see what a peaceful place it is. The peace is always there. It's just impossible to realize because what is manifesting there is the emotional signature of the collective human experience. So peace is coming through, being transformed by this emotional signature and then being expressed outwardly in the world as this emotional signature. But it's still peace. Right. So making peace is delusional. Realizing peace is when we start regaining our sanity. And when I feel, you see, the thing about it is this. We just want to get this over with. Let me just get this over with, get on with something else. I just want to get over my heart and get on with something else. But our heart is our sole responsibility. And part of this work is about realizing that there will never ever be a day, there will never ever be a moment when I will not be responsible for this. I am responsible for this, no one else, right? And the resistance to this work is not wanting to take responsibility for this part of us. But when I sit in my fear and I allow it to be there and I get out of the story, right? Because the fear is reflected physically, there is a story about it which I just don't want to let go of. Especially my stories that come out of my anger, because anger tells the best story ever. It's the best storyteller in the world. Everyone believes its stories. How many thousands of people have been killed because the stories are told recently? It tells great stories, right? But the story is never true. So it's getting out of the story and can I sit in my anger in the feeling of it without the story, without going into the behavior? Can I sit in that resonance and be there, right? And the same with my grief. Can I sit in my grief? Because it's actually not my grief, it's ours. It's ours. And for a while, for many of us, this is the work that's going on. We're not doing this work so we can live happily ever after. We're not doing this work so that we can be abundant. We're not doing this work for all these reasons that we think we're doing it, right? There is something else going on this planet in processing this work. We're doing this work because when I sit in my fear, anger, and grief and allow myself to feel it, it awakens my feeling capacity. My capacity to feel starts to awaken. The feeling part of the journey is called the flowering, right? The flowering part. And the flowering part is really necessary. If there is no flowering, there is no pollination. What we want to do is we want to go straight to being. I want to be. Just want to be. I want to go from the branches, I want to go from the roots, straight to the branches and the leaves, straight to the fruit. Forget the flower. I'm not interested in the flower. But let me tell you what, until the flower opens, the bee does not come along. The very first thing that happens when a flower opens is a bee comes along. Bzzz. That's the being. And the being is given. That's the pollination. And the fruiting happens. The fruiting doesn't happen without the flowering. And the flowering is a very uncomfortable stage, right? Because as we're starting to feel things, we're starting to feel the whole resonance of the vibrational around us. Things that are unfamiliar. And the unfamiliar, the mental body defines it immediately as uncomfortable, wrong, bad, darkness, illusion, evil, right? That's what it does. It's its natural tendency. So the feeling capacity opens, and when my feeling capacity opens and I can feel fully again, then I feel the peace that already is. When I feel the peace that already is, I'm not driven into behaviors to try and make something happen so that there will be peace. All those behaviors, all those doings that are trying to get me to feel better instead of get better at feeling, we don't want to get better at feeling. We just want to feel better, right? We just want to feel better.
The part about feeling your feelings and the flower piece of it, do you believe that that's something that a person has to do all by themselves without the witness or help of someone else?
You can't do it with someone else. You cannot. Where you need someone else in order to develop your feeling capacity is where you do not grow emotionally. That exact place. This is about the end. This work also, see, what's challenging about this work is its integration, disintegration. Integration, disintegration. And that's the part we don't want. We're like, you know what? I don't mind changing as long as my life stays the same. I'm into the transformation stuff as long as, don't mess with anything, right? But actually, when we realize, this is why so few people sit here, because the bravest people are the ones who want to go here. These are the warriors, the real warriors. The other ones just worry, right? And try and get this, just try and get this, okay? Our lives, up until the moment, while we live here and are completely unaware of this, our lives as they are manufactured out of our emotional signature. They are our lives, our relationships, our work life, everything, almost everything about us is manufactured out of the emotional signature and actually contains the emotional signature. It's designed to contain it. So I will be attracted to somebody who reflects my emotional signature, and we will get into a duel together, a dance, in which I will contain the fear, anger, and grief I haven't been dealt with will just stay here and we'll contain it, right? Now, when I go into the work and I actually integrate that, I bring it to resolution, and we're going to look at that. We're going to start to look at that right now. When I integrate that, right, that structure is going to be dismantled. And I don't want that. I don't mind changing as long as everything stays the same. But actually, it all starts to fall apart. No, I don't want it to fall apart. I want to hold it together. Right? No, it's going to fall apart. It has to fall apart so that what's required can be brought. Not what I need and want, but what's required. Right? And that is a very powerful part of the experience. And that's why only the bravest get into this work. Because nobody wants to fall apart. Right? But what we've built is an illusionary sandcastle. Right? And it's going to fall apart. And if it doesn't fall apart consciously, then it falls apart unconsciously. And that's a challenge. And being with that when the falling apart happens, that's when you're really going to take a look at the grief. Right? The grief. And that's part of the work. So let's take a look. Let's look at the mechanics of reactive and responsive behavior. Right? And the best way to look at that is in a day-to-day, because you do not have to seek your emotional signature. You do not have to understand anything. You don't have to go anywhere. The universe is so full of grace. It has such love for us. It will bring it to us on a silver platter every day. Like, here's your stuff, right? I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to bring it right to you. Don't you worry about going anywhere, right? So let's look at that. So let's say, I'll pick on you today. Right. So the best example is like something natural. Like I come to work, I'm late, right? I'm hurrying, right, into work. I'm always hurrying because I'm driven by a charge. When this isn't resolved, it's a charge, right? And it drives my behavior. The discomfort drives me, and I'm continually in reactive behavior. So I'm always 5 minutes late to work. I can never be on time. It's impossible for me, right? And I arrive at work late, and because I'm already late and I'm in the state of anxiety, and I look into my boss's office, and he looks up at me and he goes, right? And I immediately go, oh, right? And what's happened in that second, right there, is I've been triggered. It's called a trigger point, right? And what happens in a trigger point is that literally I step into a perceptual memory bank. I literally step into a memory. I actually enter an altered state of consciousness. And in that altered state of consciousness, I cannot see you, right? We're told, there's a whole thing that says, this world is an illusion. It's not real. Well, anyone who tells me that, I can hit them over the head with a metal pole and they'll know just how real it is. It's very real, this. It's just not permanent, right? But what is really the illusion about this world? What does that mean? It's this. If I look at you and I see my father, I do no longer see you. You have disappeared. I now see a ghost of the past, right? And if I start, now I'm in a state of illusion, right? If I then start behaving around you like I did around my father, all nervous and full of anxiety, then I'm in a state of delusion. So whenever I get triggered, whenever I get upset, there is no exception to this rule. I have searched and searched under every rock to find the exception. There is no exception. Whenever we get upset about anything, we have entered a memory bank, a perceptual memory bank, and we are now in an altered state of awareness in which we are in an illusion and our behavior is delusional. And in that delusional behavior, our pathway of awareness is as predictable as robotic behavior. Because from that moment, what's happened is it's a movement along this pathway of awareness. What's being triggered is an awareness of this imprint from the child, right? Let's say it's an imprint of anger. And I get triggered and I immediately go into the mental. right? So as I walk past the office and I get triggered, I'm angry, right, because of the way he looked at me. I immediately go into the story. How dare he look at me like that? I mean, okay, so I'm 15 minutes late every day, but that doesn't matter because, I do my work. I work late at night. I mean, what would this company be without me, right? I mean, I really do my work. I don't deserve to be treated this way, right? And so I go into a story. Now, the thing is, if I might just stay in the story, right? And if I stay and just act on the story, I may do what people do when they're in the story, right? We need to have a talk, you and me, right? When anyone comes to you and says, we need to have a talk, be aware that you are dealing with someone in a state of deep delusion. Do not reason with a person who is in a state of delusion. You only end up joining them in their altered state of consciousness. And then you're both going to be like, right? Until, really what I'm saying is, I'm coming here to make you agree with me, to change the way you are and what's going on here so I feel better, right? And if I can get to feel better and right, and have you agree with me, everything's going to be okay. That's what it is. I'm going to manipulate this experience so I feel better, because I don't want to feel this anger anymore inside myself, and you are causing it, right? So that's staying in the mental. However, if I go into my office and I really fume, right, and I go, you know what, and I just start stories, and I get into the deep state of hypnosis. Because what happens, I'm in a state of hypnosis. You are now a teapot or a jar of cookies. That's it. I no longer see you, right? I'm completely in a state of hypnosis. If I actually follow the pathway of awareness right through and enter the physical aspect of the experience and take it to its ultimate point, I've had enough of working here. Here's my resignation. Forget this job. Right? And I leave. I go, yeah, I showed him. One for the workers. One for the workers, right? I feel good. I feel strong. I feel better, right? And that night I go to the bar with my buddies and I go, I showed him. I just threw it on his desk. I'm the man, right? And I'm buying drinks. And while I'm buying drinks because I'm feeling all strong, everyone's going, you're the man. One for the workers, right? But eventually when I stop buying drinks, someone may say, so Frank, what are you going to do now? And that's when the hypnosis starts to leave, right? I'm a bit drunk and stuff, and I go home and I go to sleep, and when I wake up in the morning, and I go, what the hell happened? Who was the mad beast that destroyed my life? Right? And we've all experienced it. You get an email, like, what the hell? How do you send? No, bring it back, no, I didn't mean that, no. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to read that email when it comes back, I can't. I can't face myself. Right? Possession, that's what possession is. You want to know what possession is? When this takes on a life of its own, becomes so powerful, it actually runs the show, right? And that brings us completely into a reactive, altered state. And what happens is, it destroys my life. It puts me back into a place of lack, of needy and wantingness. I'm not going to get a good letter of reference from you, for sure, for my next job, right? Nothing is accomplished. Because even when I get a new job, I will arrive every morning, 15 minutes late, in a state of anxiety, and whoever my boss is will trigger me. It'll be déjà vu, because you're the same person. Nothing ever changed. That's the life of a ghost, right? So we want to raise ourselves from the dead. And raising ourselves from the dead means not projecting the energy out here, but responding to it, moving in towards the energy. So that's why in the first 6 weeks of the presence process, it takes 6 weeks to just communicate this state of hypnosis, what it looks like, and how to start gaining presence within an altered state. What this work is about is, how do I remain conscious in an altered state? Because this is the reality. When we are upset, we're upset. You are never going to get upset and not be upset. Whenever this comes into our awareness, it sets us up. It's a set up. It's not an upset. It brings it up to our attention. What's happening is, because I don't have insight to see the causal point of my anger, I have to see it outside. That's how gracious the universe is. It will, especially those closest to us, will be the most helpful in revealing our internal states. Always, right? So let's say I read the presence process and I get that I'm being set up. That actually, it's very hard for me, even when I read it in the presence process, to believe that it's not you doing it to me. Because my anger says, in a court of law, I could prove he went, and that's why I'm angry. Right? And that's why. Because he always does that to me. It's always him. It's got nothing to do with me. Right? That's the story which I will physically act on. But actually, there's no truth in it at all. Zero truth. So even though I know that, even though intellectually I get that I'm being set up, it doesn't change anything. Because what's happened is I'm going to walk in and he's going to look at me and I'm still going to get upset. Because whenever I get set up, I'm going to be upset. It doesn't matter what I think about it. It's not being run by here. It's being run by this. Until that is authentically impacted, it's going to keep unfolding. And so there will be different phases of it. The first phase is when I hear about it and I read it in the presence process and I'm doing some breathing, and so I get aware. And so what happens is I walk through the office, I'm still in a state of anxiety, I'm late, he looks at me like that, and I go, oh, and I go to my office and I go, oh, I shouldn't be treated like this, and then suddenly, wow, I got triggered, right. I suddenly regained consciousness and go, wow. I still feel angry, still feel it in my whole being. The story still wants to run, but I know on some level, no, this is a trigger. This is what it feels like to be triggered. But I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't respond to it. The next level, right, is when I gain a bit more presence, right, and I get triggered and I go, whoa, and then I go, okay. You know what? We need to have a talk. Actually, I think this can probably wait until, I'm actually doing, I'm not going, don't worry about it, right? In other words, I catch myself in mid-reaction. I catch myself in the point, and I realize, hang on, I'm being an idiot here, right? And then the next level of gaining awareness, because it's organic. The nature about, remember, the growth of the heart is organic. It's not mentally as fast as the mental body. The mental body goes boom, boom. The heart doesn't work like that. It operates more like a plant, right? So the next thing is I get triggered. I know I'm going to get triggered. I know I'm going to get to work. I'm in a hurry and I'm going to get triggered. And I walk past and I look at him and he goes to me like this, and I feel the anger, but I saw it coming. And I still feel it, right? And the story tries to start and I go, I'm not buying that. I'm not going to buy that story, right? What I'm doing is I'm pulling myself to here. I'm pulling myself now into the emotional signature. And many of us that struggle with the emotions and keep staying in the emotions, say, I've been in this forever. Every one of you is actually staying here. Haven't let go of the story yet. Gotta let go of the story. Whatever story it comes, and that is very hard. Remember, we went into a mental institution. Right? Where we got taught, indoctrinated into storytelling about everything. We tell stories about everything. None of them are true. Almost none. But that's the way we feel okay about something, is at least we can tell a story about it, which makes it somehow real and valid. But the first step is to let go of the story. So let's say I'm at work and I'm feeling this anger. Now I don't suppress it or sedate it. I'm going to practice containment. Containment is different from suppression and sedation, in that suppression and sedation is an attempt to feel better. and to push the feeling out of my awareness. I don't want to feel better. I want to get better at feeling. I'm going to allow the anger to be here. I'm going to be at work. I'm going to feel angry. It's going to be there. But I'm not going to tell the story. And because I don't tell the story, I'm not going to project the behavior physically to anyone else. So I can sit in a meeting with you, and I'm not really going to be smiling and grinning. I'm going to be in the meeting. I'm going to feel this anger around you because you actually reflect that for me, but I know it's got nothing to do with you. So therefore, I don't push it back towards you at all. I sit with it. I sit around you and I just sit in this anger. And it may stay with me a lot during the day, and then when I go home, it may have eventually subsided a bit, gone a bit quiet. But that evening I can go home and I can say,
does the anger reflect on him? Does he pick up on it?
well, he may do, but the thing about this work is to realize is that within him is the same presence that's within me, right? We all have the same presence in us. If I took the inner presence out of each of you and I shuffled them up behind my back and then I took it out and I said, which is yours, there'd only be one there. The setting up here is being facilitated from here. What's actually setting me up and bringing my awareness, who's facilitating that, isn't him or me. It's the presence. And so the presence, when you make a commitment to integrate the emotional body, the universe goes, okay, well, let's go then, right? And it will bring you those opportunities. It will also take care of the people around you as you go through the work. So don't be concerned about what harms someone is unconsciously projecting stuff onto them, which we're doing all the time. If I'm angry and I'm around him and he's the one triggering the anger, the presence inside of him is fully aware of what's going on, and things are being taken care of. So you don't have to worry about hurting this person at all. The only way you would hurt them is if you verbally or physically took the anger out. But if you can sit and feel the anger, that's okay. That's what's required. You won't hurt the mirror by seeing the reflection.
So, like, if you're anxious around somebody and you recognize that, and like, you don't want to project that. Like, if you dwell on thinking about, oh, I'm probably making this person anxious.
Well, that's the story, and that's what I'm saying is we have to get out of the story. The story's not true. That's the mental. So what we want to do is, so that anxiousness that you're feeling, right? So is that a real situation for you now in your life? Okay. So bring an awareness of that anxiousness up, of that person. So bring the physical image of that person, right? And now the story that you've been telling me, right? Now you can feel that anxiousness. Where do you feel it? In your body. Okay, so just put your awareness on it and stay with it. That's your task. That's going to the causal point and just sitting with it. Now, you don't want to do anything to it. Remember, we said water knows how to flow to the ocean. An emotion knows what to do if you allow it to be, right? You don't want to turn it into light, move it through your chakras, understand it, heal it, none of that stuff. You just want to, in fact, what you do is you listen to it the same way. If you listen to a bird, right? When you're listening to a bird, you're not trying to change the bird in any way. You're just listening to it. You're not fiddling with the bird. If you listen to a song on the radio, you can't change the song by listening to it. You either listen to it or you don't. It's the same thing as when you've tuned into it where it's in your body, you just listen to it. And the listening is the digestion, right? So that's what we do is we go home and we use that exact same procedure, right? What I do is then I use this pathway of awareness to go to the causal point. I can go to it any time I want. And it's best by myself. If it comes up when I'm around people, I be with it as best as I can. In the awareness that the universe knows what's going on. The universe is all intelligent. It knows when we're doing this work. In fact, it's the one that allows it, right? It's the facilitator. So I go home, and what I do is I first bring up the physical circumstance. I went to work, the image of me going to work, my boss ups. Then the story that I tell myself about it, it will come up. And the story will trigger a feeling of the anger. And then I just simply ask myself, well, where am I feeling this? My hands may be buzzing, I may have a feeling in my soul. Wherever it is valid. Wherever it is valid. My task then is to be with it without condition. Being with it without condition. No conditions placed upon it. Right? We have this expression in our language, unconditional love. It's become such a catchphrase, we don't even know what it means. But actually it means no conditions. Right? That's true justice. True justice being brought to here, our justice in the world is revenge. Real justice is when it just is. That's what the word means, it just is. Right? So I sit with it just as it is. If I'm feeling it in my solar plexus, I allow it to be there. And the best image that we have in our religious icons about this is the Madonna and the child. The Madonna and the child, the Madonna's not saying, well, who are you really? And how did you get here? And how long are you going to be in my arms? And do I rock you this way or that way? Right? No, none of that's going on. It's just cradling. Right? The cradling is really important because out of the cradle comes the birth. The birth is from within the cradle, right? A rebirth. And so our task is to cradle it, to embrace it, and to be with it without condition. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't need to know what's going to happen. I don't have to understand what. I don't have to know where this started or where it'll end. All of that is unnecessary. I'm simply placing my awareness on it, and I'm being with it. I'm listening to it. It's like a note in a piece of music that I don't like to listen to. But I'm agreeing to listen to this note in this music. By sitting and being without condition, what I'm really doing is I'm taking the conditions of sedation and control off of it that have been there unconsciously all my life. All my life, I have grasped this emotional signature and pushed it out of my awareness in any way possible. I don't even know that I'm doing it. And that's why being without condition is an art form. Right? It's an art form. It's an art form that we have to practice because we don't even know what that means. We can't be with anything without condition. We have conditions for everything. I have conditions that you're with me. I have conditions on why I've got this job. I have conditions on why I'm at this workshop today. I have all sorts of conditions, right? But actually, with ourselves, this is the primary relationship. Can I be with this causal point here without condition? Initially, what may happen is I put my attention on the anger and poops, it goes away. Because it's its natural behavior. That energy has always been pushed away. Whenever I put my attention on it, it's to push it away. So what it does, it goes, shook. So I have to go, no, it's okay, you can be here. Okay, it'll start coming more into my awareness. And when I sit with it, it knows how to move to a point of resolution. This feeling is that child. That child that is crying that came into the room, or that's angry, this feeling that I'm feeling isn't me as an adult. That's why it's so difficult, because when I have this interaction with you in which I get angry, I believe it's happening now. It's not. It's a memory bank. I've stepped into an echo of a past. This happened long time ago. It happened so long ago that I have no ways of, because you know what? This happened to my father. This happened to his father. This happened to his father. And they all had their stories about who was to blame. And all their stories are different. And the only truth is the feeling that is coming up when this happens, that's the only truth. That's the only truth. And that's gone from generation to generation to generation. It is, what that feeling is a definition of love. It's a definition placed upon this. It's a condition placed upon this. And whenever we place a condition on the vibrational, it makes us very uncomfortable because the vibrational is beyond any condition. It's like trying to place, it's like trying to put all the electricity in the world through the circuits of this building. It's going to get very uncomfortable for this building. Right? And so that's what we're doing when we place. And that condition has been passed from generation to generation to generation. And that's why I say it's not personal. When we tell the story, what we're doing is we're making it personal. And while we make it personal, we can't get to the causal point. The causal point has no story. We're still on the diving board, jumping up and down. We have to go into the water. And the causal point for us is purely a feeling. Purely a felt sensation. Now, when we sit with that feeling, the moment I sit with that feeling and there is no story, that's when the alchemy begins. And what the alchemy is becoming aware of the heat, of the friction. I'm allowing it to fully enter my awareness, right? I'm allowing it to be there without condition. And when I do, it will go through its own way of starting to move on. And initially, like the child, it may peak. Its peaking isn't that it's getting worse. It's that I am becoming more aware of it. Initially, when we enter this work, it looks like our symptoms, our difficulties, our things are getting worse. It's not. As we approach session 7 in the process, that's why people stop at 7, because it's like everything's getting worse. No, you're just becoming more aware of that which has been sedated and controlled. But remember, our only tool of transformation is awareness. There is no other tool. Awareness. And how the intent of that, how that awareness is focused through intent. Am I intending to stop this? Am I intending to turn it into light? Because if I say my pain, my anger is, knotted black barbed wire dripping with blood, and I'm going to turn it into angelic bubbles of heavenly light, that's called interference, right? That's messing with yourself, right? Any of that behavior stops the alchemy. What the alchemy is this energy moves to a peak, and it's the pressure cooker going to the point that it can cook this energetic thing, and it's going to burn it up. And what it really is, it's a death. It's called dying. What we do is we don't like to die now. I want to die later, right? What we do is we leave death right until the end of the experience, and we have it all at once. What happens when a person gets to the old age is all of the emotional signatures come up at once, right? They start behaving like a child, right? The body just goes, right? The mind goes, right? That's all the emotional signature coming up at once. Or otherwise, I just completely forget everything that happened. All at once. I can't even deal with it, right? It's called present moment awareness by default, right? Yeah, completely brush it out completely. So the thing is, we got told a long time ago, die daily, die every day. In fact, have a good death once a day. But we don't want to die. We don't want to experience death. We want high tide, we don't want low tide. The way we are through our conditioning and our indoctrination is we stand on the beach and the tide comes in and it's full and we go, I'm fantastic. Look at me, how successful I am. Everything is great. And then the tide starts going up and go, oh, I'm a bad person. What have I done wrong? What's going to happen, right? The tide comes in again, oh, I'm wonderful again, right? We don't want any low tide. We're like a tree and get to autumn and go, oh, what have I done? The leaves are falling off. I just don't know. I'm never going to make it. It's over, right? That's how we are. And the fact is, there are tides and seasons, and there is life. The life and death are moving within each other, the birth and death all the time. And so what happens is, when I enter this resonance that's been going on here fully in awareness, what I am is I'm entering the past fully. Because actually, it's not real. What's been going on here is a ghost, right? It must die so this moment can be reborn, right? So I can raise myself from the dead in this moment. And what will happen is I will start going through a death experience in my alchemy. And I know it's a death experience because the mental body will let me know. The mental body says, this is never going to work. It's hopeless. I've never accomplished anything. There is no future. There is no such thing as God. It's the end. I might as well just die. Right? The mental body will tell those stories. And the moment the mental body starts speaking like that, we know we're approaching the death experience. And what we want to do is, in that moment, pull ourselves even more into the feeling and stay with the feeling of it. Don't start entertaining the mental body, because the mental body its whole perception of this has to die. The story it told has to die. None of it is true. None of it is true, right? And so as the death experience unfolds, I will feel physically deeply uncomfortable. Mentally, there will be anguish going on. And emotionally, there will be anguish. And it will peak. It'll go to a point of peaking. And whatever that looks like for anyone is valid, because it's different for everyone. And we may go to a point of tears. Suddenly, there may be an explosion of tears. And after that, once that's passed, there's a state of peace. Boom, boom, boom. Poof. And I will know that I've reached resolution. And you know how I know? Because my 3D experience has been transformed. In other words, when I'm at home and I've gone through this experience, and I'm in the state of peace now, and you know you are, because suddenly there's an experience of gratitude. Like, wow. And when I put my attention on you and I think about you at work, I go, wow, thanks for bringing that to my attention. I had no idea that was there. Right? I'm grateful towards the mirror, towards the reflection. There is no anger there. And what happens is, you see, the mental body gets us to believe you have to understand in order to heal. If you don't understand, you can't heal. But actually, understanding is a hurdle to healing. Because once I go through the alchemical experience and I allow that to unfold, in the peace afterwards, I will have insight. In other words, by feeling that anger, I have awoken a certain amount of feeling capacity that was shut down. And so a certain amount of my perceptual sight has reawakened. And because I have that, I can see more deeply about my experience. And if it is required, my insight will reveal to me what that was about. To go, wow. Oh, you know, my whole life with authority figures, I've had this thing going on. And actually, it was about never being good enough for my dad. It was that thing. Because, you know, my dad never felt good enough anyway. And so that was the projection, right? And that's been going on in my family all the time. That's the insight. And I just know that. I don't even have to understand. I just know it, right? And what will happen is it'll transform my 3D. So, you know, the next morning I get up, and I may not quite notice it, but things will feel a little bit different. And I'll get up and I'll be a little bit more calm and relaxed. And it'll really amaze me. I get to work on time. And I'm not rushing. There's no charge. Because what happens is when we do the alchemy work, we're not driven by the charge. We turn around and we enter the charge. It's called being in charge, right? Being in charge of our life. We turn around and we enter the charge and allow the charge to allow ourselves to be in the charge. Not to do anything with it, but be in charge. That's what it means to be in charge, right? And so what will happen is I'll come to work. And because whenever I do any alchemy work, what's happening is I'm seeing deeper into myself. It's called intimacy. I'm becoming more intimate with myself. And the more intimate I become with myself, the more intimate I become with all of you. It's a natural tendency. Especially, the more intimate I become related to this emotional signature, the more intimate I'll become with you. When I resolve this, I become increasingly intimate with you. And so what happens is, the nature of intimacy is that I will not push away from you, I will gravitate towards you. I won't be pushing away anymore. So I walk past the door, right, and I look at you. I got that funny look on your face, but that's all right. And I come and I go, hey, how's it going? You know, there's an opening here. I feel open because I've opened something in the portal, right? And so we start chatting, and because I am more open with you, you will naturally be more open with me. It's the mirror. It's the mirror. And so we start chatting, and we're chatting, you go like, how's it going? I go, I'm fine now, I've been dealing with a lot of stuff, but you know, luckily I'm kind of moving through some of that, you know, I feel you know, all right. And you'll say, yeah, I've been having a problem too, you know, recently I've been really constipated, right? And I'll get in that moment that the story is never true. The story is never true. right? And then I can say, maybe I can share with you and go, I've been dealing with a lot of anger, and yeah, it causes constipation. Can't stop hating, right? Because anger dries up the stomach lining. It's the biggest friction. It dries up, and the more anger we have, the more difficult it is to deal with our shit, basically. Right? It's very difficult. That's what causes constipation. Anger, right? So we'll be more connected through that. And that's the nature of the alchemy of this work. If it doesn't impact my 3D experience in an irreversible way, it's not the work. It's not the work. That is the sign of the work. The sign of the work is it transforms my life experience irreversibly. That's how I know that I've accomplished resolution. Resolution contains the word solution. Resolution, right? The word release means lease. You just lease that feeling of being good for a while. It's on lease, but you don't get to keep it. It's not yours. You can feel good for a while after you've released, but you're going to have to still pay the piper down the line. Resolution actually brings about a solution to what's been going on here. Also, I'm awakened in this moment. I'm now here. I, for the first time, see you. I don't see my Father. I see you, and I'm able to behave as I am around you, right? And that's opened a portal between you and I that was closed, right? A portal in part of the mirror that's been reflecting a closure, right? So that's the first level of the work, and it's very important I do that first level of the work before I go any further, because repeatedly going through that experience of alchemy is going to show me through an experience, not an understanding, that this is the causal point of the quality of my experience. In fact, I went home and I transformed the quality of my experience with you without talking to you, without doing anything to you, without expecting you to do anything. Wow, that's real magic. That's real magic, right? And I have to show that to myself over and over and over and over until I really, really get it. That I do unto myself as I would have others do. I make an internal adjustment when I want to change the outer world, right? It's restoring the pathway of awareness from being back to front, right? From being back to front. It's removing ineffectual behavior out of it's decreasing the drama. This is because either I go into the drama or I go into the dharma, right? Drama or dharma. That's our choice. So let's take a 15-minute, and we'll come back and we'll just do a finish off before lunch. It takes 15 minutes out.